What if I told you that hurting a Sagittarius isn't just a mistake? It's something you'll remember for the rest of your life. At first, it might not seem like a big deal. After all, Sagittarius is known for being easygoing, fun, adventurous, the kind of person who laughs things off and keeps moving forward. They don't hold on to negativity the way others do. They don't chase drama. And they definitely don't waste time on things that don't feed their soul. But that's exactly where most people get it wrong. Because behind that free-spirited energy, behind the jokes, the optimism, and the constant desire for new experiences, there's a depth that very few people truly understand. Sagittarius feels more than they show. They observe more than they say. And when they give you their trust, their time, and their presence, they're giving you something real, something rare. So when that trust is broken, it doesn't create chaos the way it might with other signs. It creates distance. And that distance, that's where the regret begins. Because a Sagittarius won't always fight you. They won't always argue, beg, or try to fix what's broken. Instead, they do something far more powerful. They detach. Silently. Completely. And often, permanently. One day, they're there, bringing light into your life, making everything feel exciting, spontaneous, and alive. And the next, they're gone. No explanations. No second chances. Just a quiet understanding within them that what was once meaningful no longer aligns with who they are becoming. And that's what makes it so dangerous to hurt a Sagittarius. It's not about revenge. It's not about anger. It's about closure. Once they decide they've seen enough, felt enough, understood enough, they don't look back. And that's when most people realize what they've lost. Not just a person, but an energy, a presence, a kind of freedom and authenticity that can't be easily replaced. Because being loved by a Sagittarius is an experience. It's laughter, truth, passion, adventure, and a connection that refuses to be fake. So when that's gone, it leaves a space that nothing else quite fills. In this video, you're about to discover the 5 real reasons why you should never hurt a Sagittarius, and why so many people end up regretting it long after they're gone. Make sure you watch until the end, because once you understand this, you'll never see Sagittarius the same way again. Have you ever met a Sagittarius and felt like there was something rare, almost untouchable about them? As if, no matter how close you get, there's always a part of them that remains free, wild, and impossible to contain? Sagittarius is one of the most powerful and misunderstood energies in the zodiac. And if you've ever hurt one, maybe you already know, they're not easy to replace. For some people, Sagittarius is just someone detached, impulsive, and emotionally distant. But for others, they are deep, wise, loyal, and brutally honest souls who simply refuse to live a fake life. That's the contradiction. They seem light, but they feel deeply. They seem free, but they take truth very seriously. And that's exactly why hurting a Sagittarius can have consequences you only understand too late. In this video, you're going to discover 5 reasons why you should never hurt a Sagittarius, or you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And no, it's not about revenge. It's about something much quieter and much more final. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This helps us continue bringing deep content like this every single day. And if you've ever felt that Sagittarius energy, drop your birthday in the comments below. Sagittarius values freedom above everything. Sagittarius was not born to live trapped, and that's not an exaggeration, it's their essence. From an early age, there's an almost instinctive need within them to explore, discover, and experience the world without restraints. It's not just about physical freedom, but emotional, mental, and spiritual freedom. Sagittarius needs to feel like they can be who they truly are, without judgment, without limitations, without having to reshape themselves to fit someone else's expectations. And this is exactly where many people get confused. Because on the outside, Sagittarius seems light, fun, and easy to deal with. They seem like someone who doesn't get attached, who doesn't go deep, who is always ready to move on. But that perception is superficial. In reality, when a Sagittarius chooses to stay, it's because they want to, and that carries immense value. They don't stay out of dependency. They don't stay out of fear of being alone. They don't stay out of convenience. They stay by choice. And when someone who values their own freedom so deeply decides to share their life, time, and energy with you, it means you were seen as someone who adds to their life, not someone who limits it. Now imagine the impact when that freedom is threatened. When there is control, pressure, excessive demands, or worse, a breach of trust. Sagittarius doesn't see it as a simple mistake. They see it as a prison being built around them. And Sagittarius doesn't fight prisons. They simply leave. No dramatic scenes, no long explanations, no attempts to convince anyone of anything. Because to them, the answer is already clear. Where there is no freedom, there is no reason to stay. What's most impressive is that this doesn't come from coldness. It comes from awareness. Sagittarius understands that by staying in something that limits them, they would be betraying themselves. And that is a price far too high to pay, even for someone they love. This is the positive side. Sagittarius teaches you about lightness, autonomy, trust, and space. They show that it's possible to love without controlling, to connect without suffocating, to be present without losing your own essence. But there's also the difficult side, because many people only realize how much they were limiting as Sagittarius when they've already decided to leave. And when that happens, it doesn't matter how many promises are made or how quickly someone tries to fix what was broken. Because for Sagittarius, freedom is not something you negotiate after it's lost. It's something that should have been respected from the very beginning. And that's why hurting a Sagittarius at this specific point is so delicate. You're not just hurting someone. You're touching the very thing that sustains who they are. And when that is broken, what comes next isn't a discussion. It's distance. And most of the time, permanent. They don't argue, they walk away. Sagittarius is not the kind of person who wastes hours trying to prove a point, win an argument, or feed conflicts that lead nowhere. At first, this might even seem like indifference. But it's not. It's awareness. Sagittarius understands something that few people truly grasp. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every conversation needs to be extended. And most importantly, not every relationship deserves continuous access to their energy. While many signs react impulsively, raise their voices, insist, demand explanations, and get trapped in endless cycles of arguments, Sagittarius observes. They pay attention to actions, patterns, what is said, and even more, what is not said. And their silence is already part of the answer. Because when a Sagittarius starts to go quiet, to emotionally withdraw, to stop reacting the way they used to, something has already changed within them. They don't need to scream to show that something isn't right. They simply stop investing. And that's what makes it all more intense. Because unlike an explosive argument, where there's still active emotion, an attempt to fix things, a desire to repair, Sagittarius distance is cold, rational, and extremely final. They don't argue because, in many cases, they already understand enough. They've already noticed patterns they don't want to repeat. They've already felt things they don't want to relive. They've already seen signs that, to them, are too clear to ignore. And when that level of clarity arrives, there's nothing left to debate. The positive side of this is maturity. Sagittarius doesn't get lost in emotional games, doesn't manipulate situations, and doesn't prolong conflicts out of pride. They choose peace, even if that means letting someone go. But the difficult side is exactly that. Because when they walk away, it's usually not a test, not a strategy to get attention, not a break to see if the other person will chase them. It's a decision, and often a silent one. You might not notice it right away. At first, it feels like a subtle distance, shorter replies, less interest, less presence. Until suddenly, you feel it. They're no longer there. And when it finally hits, many people try to chase, start a conversation, understand what happened, look for a clearer explanation. But for Sagittarius, the process has already been completed internally. They've already talked to themselves. They've already reflected. They've already decided. And what could have been resolved through dialogue earlier has now turned into distance. Because for Sagittarius, arguing without real change doesn't make sense. Insisting where there is no growth doesn't make sense. Staying where the energy is no longer light doesn't make sense. And in the end, the greatest pain for the one left behind isn't even the argument that never happened. It's the silence that replaced it. Because the silence of a Sagittarius is not empty. It is an answer. And most of the time, it's a goodbye that doesn't need words. Their truth can hurt, but it's real. Sagittarius doesn't know how to pretend. And that alone says a lot. While many people filter what they say to avoid conflict, soften their words to be accepted, or even hide what they truly feel to maintain a relationship, Sagittarius does the opposite. They say it. They show it. They reveal it. And it doesn't always come in the most comfortable way. The famous, brutal honesty of Sagittarius is not a myth. It's a core trait of their personality. But what few people understand is that this honesty doesn't come from a desire to hurt. It comes from a need to be real. For Sagittarius, living a lie, no matter how small, is far more painful than facing any truth, no matter how harsh it may seem. And that's exactly why, when you hurt them, their response doesn't come loaded with emotional games or indirect messages. It comes with clarity. They see the situation as it is, without romanticizing, without justifying, without creating illusions to feel better. And when they decide to speak, they speak with precision. They point out actions. They name behaviors. They express what they felt and what they noticed. And that can hurt, because not everyone is ready to hear the truth without filters. Not everyone wants to see themselves so directly. But Sagittarius is not there to maintain comfortable versions of reality. They are there to live something real. The positive side of this is powerful. With a Sagittarius, you always know where you stand. There are no constant doubts, manipulation games, or mixed signals. Their transparency creates lighter, more honest relationships, and, when understood properly, much deeper ones. They challenge you to grow, to step out of your comfort zone, to face what you might have been avoiding. But there is also a difficult side, because that same truth that sets you free can also push people away. Many feel exposed, confronted, even hurt by the direct way Sagittarius expresses themselves. And instead of understanding the intention behind it, they react with defensiveness, pride, or even rejection. And that's where everything changes. Because Sagittarius will not soften who they are just to be accepted. They won't learn to lie just to keep someone around. If their truth is too much for someone, they simply accept it and move on. No masks, no regret. Because, in the end, Sagittarius believes in something very simple. A truth that hurts is still better than a lie that comforts. And when you understand that, you realize the pain doesn't come from their intention. It comes from the impact of finally seeing what was once hidden. They are constantly evolving. Sagittarius is not the same person for very long. And that's not instability, it's evolution. There's a natural restlessness within them, almost impossible to ignore. A need to grow, learn, expand their horizons, and go beyond what they already know. For Sagittarius, life is not a place of permanence. It's a path of continuous transformation. They are always searching for something greater. More truth, more meaning, more freedom. And this directly impacts how they relate to others, make decisions, and see the world. Because while many people settle into what they already know, Sagittarius begins to question. Does this still make sense to me? Does this still represent who I am? Am I still this person? And when the answer is no, they don't ignore it. They change. The positive side of this is inspiring. Sagittarius grows quickly. They learn from experiences, absorb lessons, adapt, and reinvent themselves. Being with someone like this can be transformative because they pull you forward, encourage you to leave stagnation behind, and show you that there is always something new to live, learn, and feel. They are not afraid of the unknown. In fact, they are driven by it. But there's a side that not everyone can keep up with. Because constant evolution means leaving things behind. It means letting go of old versions of themselves. It often means walking away from people, places, and situations that no longer align with who they are becoming. And this is where many people lose their connection with Sagittarius, because they try to connect with who they used to be, instead of who they are becoming. They try to hold on to a version that no longer exists. And Sagittarius notices that. They notice when they're being limited. They notice when they have to adapt too much just to fit someone's expectations. They notice when staying means stopping their growth. And for them, that's not an option. So they do what they do best. They move forward, without necessarily creating conflict, without needing to justify every change, without asking permission to evolve. Because deep down, Sagittarius understands that growth is an individual responsibility, and no one can evolve for them. The difficult side of all this is that in the process of evolving, they may seem distant, inconsistent, or even too detached. But the truth is different. They're not pulling away because they don't feel. They're moving because they need to expand. And when something or someone no longer keeps up with that movement, it gets left behind. Not because it has no value, but because it no longer aligns. And that's why hurting a Sagittarius during this process is so delicate. Because instead of trying to rebuild something that has already been broken, they simply integrate the experience, learn from it, and move to the next level, without looking back. Because for Sagittarius, living is evolving. And evolving often means not staying. When they leave, they take everything with them. When a Sagittarius decides to leave your life, it's not something light. And most importantly, it's not temporary. Because Sagittarius doesn't leave halfway. They don't leave doors half open. They don't maintain connections out of convenience. They don't stay a little present just to avoid losing the connection completely. When they go, they truly go. And that's what makes it so impactful. Because while they were there, they gave something rare. Genuine presence, lightness, spontaneity, truth. Sagittarius doesn't love in a superficial way. They may seem detached, but when they choose to be with someone, they give themselves with intensity, in their own way, free, without masks, without games. They bring life into the environment. They turn simple moments into experiences. They make you feel like the world is bigger, more interesting, more full of possibilities. And often, you only realize how big that was when it's all gone. Because when Sagittarius leaves, it's not just the person that goes. It's the energy, the easy laughter, the light conversations, the feeling of freedom even while being with someone. They take with them something that cannot be forced or artificially recreated. The positive side? They don't stay out of obligation. They will never occupy a space in your life without truly wanting to be there. Which means that while they were there, it was real. It was a choice. It was truth. But the difficult side is dealing with the emptiness afterward. Because unlike those who leave and still keep in touch, still show up sometimes, still leave a bridge open for a possible return, Sagittarius closes cycles. And they close them consciously, not out of anger, not out of impulse, but because they understand that it has already fulfilled its purpose. And once that decision is made, there is rarely any return. You can try to reconnect. You can send messages, try to explain, promise change, revisit memories. But Sagittarius doesn't go back to what has already lost its meaning. They don't rewrite chapters that, for them, are already finished. And that's when regret usually appears. Not during the relationship, not in the conflict, but afterward, in the silence, in the absence, in the comparison with everything that comes after and doesn't reach what they once represented. Because replacing a Sagittarius is not simple. It's not about finding another person. It's about trying to fill a feeling. And that feeling is unique. It's freedom with connection. It's lightness with depth. It's presence without control. And that's not easy to find. That's why, When you hurt a Sagittarius and lose the place you had in their life, what remains is not just the memory. It's the awareness that something real passed through your life, and you didn't know how to keep it. And the most striking part of all, Sagittarius doesn't need to look back to confirm their decision. They move forward. They grow. They live. While the one who stayed behind learns, often in the hardest way, the value of what was lost. And maybe the hardest thing to accept is that Sagittarius doesn't hold grudges. They don't stay stuck in what happened. They simply understand, learn, and move on. But moving on, for them, means something very clear. Not going back to what no longer makes sense. Sagittarius is not cold. They are free. It's not that they don't feel. It's that they don't stay attached to what prevents them from growing. And in the end, the greatest lesson is this. Sagittarius doesn't teach through words. They teach through absence. And when you finally understand that, it might already be too late. And if you made it this far, I truly want to thank you for listening to this message until the end. It shows that, in some way, it touched you. If this content resonated with you, comment the number 2727 below. That way I'll know this message reached you and connected with your energy. And don't forget, your support makes all the difference. When you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, like, and share. You help this message reach more people who also need to hear it. Thank you for being part of this. See you in the next video.